Welcome back, boxing fans. So I was just listening to Chris Algieri and the guy from CompuBox on their show, Inside Boxing or whatever it's called. Not a bad show. If you're not subscribed, go check it out. And they were talking about how great it is and how boxing couldn't be any better and how fantastic it is that we now have an undisputed heavyweight champion after over 25 years, right? And then it made me think about probably what the biggest problem in boxing truly is. And it's not promoters, it's not all the other bullshit that goes on in the sport that stops fights from happening. It's none of that. And I've talked about this a lot, and for some reason, I seem to be the only person really making videos bringing this topic up. And this is the sanctioning bodies. I talked about how I hope Turki El-Sheikh uses his billions of dollars to buy these guys out, get rid of them completely, and come back with one world champion, and really put emphasis back on the ranking system, the top 10, and how you need to beat guys in the top 10 to move yourself up the rankings to earn an opportunity to fight the world champion. And then boxing is really going to be back at the pinnacle that it once was. We're going to have one champion in a weight class. Undisputed won't be an issue because there won't be a need for undisputed. Right now we have an undisputed heavyweight champion, but thanks to the IBF, it probably won't be 6 months until the IBF strips Usyk and puts some other joker in the position of that world title, as if that person deserves it more than Usyk does. And you'll hear some people say, well, this guy deserves the opportunity to become undisputed or to fight for the world title. Give me a fucking break. You don't even know what his name is. You don't even want to pay for the fight. You don't even care about the guy who's the undisputed. 90% of guys that are mandatories in boxing, nobody knows who they are. No one gives a fuck about who they are. They don't get big fights because they don't generate money, so the big guys can't fight them because they can't justify the top guys in boxing fighting this guy, right? And the reality of the situation is dudes are in these positions and they barely fought anyone legitimate to even put themselves into these rankings. When you look at the IBF, generally they have the first two or two of the top 3 positions on their rankings empty, so they can then fuck around and do whatever they want to fuck up the sport of boxing. We saw them do this with Canelo Alvarez at middleweight, when they literally took away the IBF title, stopping him from fighting Andrade to become an undisputed champion. Canelo should also be a 2-weight undisputed champion at 160 and 168. But of course the IBF stuck their dirty fucking nose in this business and just created issues, right? The WBC, of course, created a franchise belt, creating issues. The WBA created the super title, creating fucking issues. Really, the only one out of these sanctioning bodies that shows that they're more about the sport of boxing than corruption, payola, and just being complete dicks is the WBO. But even they have their own issues, right? With their incestual relationship with Top Rank. You look at the IBF now, and you know, literally one of my casual co-workers brought up the fact saying that Usyk, he asked me, is it really true? Is Usyk going to be stripped of one of his titles that he just won? And I had to say, yeah, because that's fucking boxing, right? And he couldn't believe it because it's the stupidest thing imaginable. Why would you strip the undisputed heavyweight champion of one of his titles? Why wouldn't you just work with him and the team to then make things so that this mandatory was then put in position to fight him at a later date? Because obviously we know Fury and Usyk had a rematch clause. And because of this rematch clause, this gives the IBF every opportunity they need to ruin something that we've waited 25 years for. You think about Canelo Alvarez now at 168. They want to put William Skull as a mandatory for the IBF. William fucking Skull. See, if it was pushing David Benavidez, the WBC, forcing Canelo to fight Benavidez or be stripped of the WBC title, people would be like, yeah, sure, you should do that. Or even if it was David Morrell and the WBA, who were trying to put their WBA regular and super titles together as ordered by some commission. They still haven't done it. But if they were to order that, people would be like, yeah, that makes sense. Nobody would hate on that. We would question if Morrell has enough experience at this point to be a legitimate contender against Canelo, but people would be excited because people think Morrell is the real deal. But you put a guy like William Skull, who hasn't beaten any top 10 fucking 168 pounders, is coming off of fights with people nobody's ever heard of, and you put him into a position where now somebody, some promoter, is supposed to pay Canelo Alvarez $30 million to fight this fucking Cuban guy that lives in Germany that nobody even knows who he is, and act like this fight makes more sense than the other fights that Canelo Alvarez has been having. Right? We saw them do this with Jay Opataya. He beat Marius Bradis, then they stripped his ass. He had to fight literally Marius Bradis again to re-win the title. And it's not just that situation. The guy that just got beat on the Saudi card at 130 pounds, the Welsh kid or whatever his name is, Cordina. Cordina literally was the IBF champion, broke his hand, couldn't fight, and they stripped him. So then he had to fight that guy later on to win back his IBF title. It's not that he tried to duck anyone. He literally was injured and couldn't fight anybody. But the IBF still took the opportunity to once again strip the world champion to create some bullshit that didn't fucking help the sport of boxing, didn't move the sport into a better situation. Right? Like literally, this pissed off Turki El-Sheikh so much. I hope he steps on their neck, especially if they talk about stripping Usyk, which I'm sure they are. Because if you want to strip Usyk and Canelo, two of the pound-for-pound top fucking 5 fighters in boxing today, who are undisputed, actually doing something great for the sport, to push some fucking unknown dudes into that position as if somehow it's better for the sport of boxing. Having a William Skull fight, or fucking Hrgovic, Daniel Dubois winner. The reality is, Usyk already fucking beat Daniel Dubois. If Daniel Dubois beats Hrgovic, that means Usyk's got to fight him again, even though he just knocked him out? How does that fucking benefit boxing? How does that make any sense? I mean, at least if Hrgovic wins, it's a new opponent. But if Hrgovic gets beat by Daniel Dubois, now it just becomes a shit show. Ridiculous. Because this is what sanctioning bodies do to the sport of boxing. They fuck it up. They make it so that casual sports fans don't know what the fuck is going on. You have people in position now to bring positivity to the sport of boxing and to get a lot of attention. But you still want to strip them, even though they just earned this opportunity for Undisputed. As if somehow the narrative or bullshit you're pushing somehow is beneficial to the sport of boxing. Right? It's ridiculous. And that's why I hate these sanctioning bodies, hate the bullshit they continuously push. I can't believe these YouTube channels out there consistently are pushing bullshit narratives about boxers when they should be pushing all narratives towards these sanctioning bodies. If you want to talk about drug testing in the sport, once again, look at these fucking sanctioning bodies. They're the ones in control, right? If you want consistent drug testing, it should come from them. They should be the ones funding it, organizing it, and making sure every fighter ranked in the top 10 passes tests consistently so that they're ranked in the top 10, making them eligible for fucking world title fights down the line. And then we wouldn't have all this bullshit conversation going on. But once again, people are blaming the wrong people, blaming the fighters, blaming everybody else, but not blaming these people that pull the strings just to fucking basically, benefit off of the boxers. I think it's disgusting, and I'm angry about it because it makes no fucking sense at all. It's not good for the sport. Having 4 world champions has always been bullshit, and the fact that when a guy does beat everybody and becomes undisputed, then the sanctioning bodies consistently just want to fuck shit up. It's the same thing they did when Anthony Joshua was a unified champion. They literally put hurdles in the way, stopping him from being undisputed again and again and again. I don't like it. I think it's terrible. And these sanctioning bodies, they should just be pushed out of the sport of boxing because they do nothing but cause fucking chaos and controversy. But leave your comments below. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace out.